living, you got to stand up, take a look away, look up way to the sky. When your deepest thoughts are broken, keep on dreaming, boy. Don't stop dreaming, it's time to die. And we all play parts of tomorrow. Some ways will work and other ways will play. But I know we can't all stay here forever. So I just write my words on the face of today. And I'm painting. All look at me and say, and they'll say, look at him and where he is these days. Life is hard, but you have to change.
Good afternoon. It's with a heavy heart that we are gathered here today to remember someone who touched our lives so much and touched the life of everyone that he met. My name is Jared Jones. I graduated law school with Charles. I spent a summer living with him once. We referred to it as 2.5 Men. We like to think it was funnier than the sitcom, although it probably wasn't. There are no amount of tears and no words that are going to make anything about today okay. But we're going to try to do our best. And so there's a few people who wanted to say some words about Charles. We'll start off with Dean Greg Bowman, who was Dean of the WVU College of Law. Currently, he was just Professor Bowman when Charles and I had him for class, and he taught us that the answer to every question in life is freedom of contract or it depends. Turned out to be disturbingly accurate. But now he's Dean, and I will turn it over for him to speak. There are those who say he's Dean because Charles and I made him look good. And there are those who would say he's Dean now because he made us look good. I'll let you try to figure that one out. But without further ado, Dean Bowman, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm really quite humbled by it. This is, of course, a sad occasion. And we're here, however, to celebrate the life. Remember the life of Charles Pinkerton. He was, as Jared said, a student of mine. I did not need to help him in making him look good. He looked good all by himself. Jared's another story. But, you know, all former students have a special place in my heart, but it is true that Charles was one of those students who just stood out, and so I'm humbled to be here today. I was very fond of him, and I was frankly a bit of a loss when I was asked to speak. The answer was, of course, yes. The next question was, what do I say? What do I say to a tent full of people who were friends and family who knew and who love him? What do I say to you? To people who might tell stories from his childhood, high school, law school, afterward. What do I say? But as I look out at you at this sea of faces, I am comforted, deeply comforted, by the fact that so many of you knew Charles. You know and you love him, and that is what I have to say. You are his legacy. You carry him forward. And you might find yourself asking sometimes, when you're facing a decision, what would Charles do? I actually had a couple of very difficult decisions to make this week in difficult situations, and I found myself actually asking that question. And the answer is always smile. Just smile. So you and your actions today and moving forward, they are the legacy of Charles. The way you live your lives, that will be a deeply, deeply meaningful tribute to this fine young man. So my story about Charles. When I first met him, and I think I share this in common with many of you in here, I thought, he can't possibly be that nice. He's faking it. He can't possibly smile all the time. He's just putting that on for me because I'm a professor. He can't possibly be that sincere. But he was. He was the only student I have ever had in class that when I called on him to brief the case, he smiled. Other students in the room understand the importance of what I'm saying, the uniqueness. Christina, you answered my questions with poise and preparedness and grace, but you did not smile. And nor, for the record, did I. When I was called on in law school, very first time I was called in law school, I actually did the I forgot my name thing. I had never been at a loss for words until my very first day being called on in law school, so you did far better than I did. But Charles outdid us all. He smiled. And he was genuinely loved by his classmates, and some of his classmates are here in the front and in the back. That was a special class to me. It will always be a special class in my heart. It was the first class I taught as 1Ls at the WVU College of Law when I was there as a visitor. Not tenured track, just as a visitor. Very special. So what I think is fitting is for me to read some words about him that Christina sent me, one of his classmates and his beloved. She said to me, and I quote, "You met Charles at a point in his life that I did. So I don't have much to add as far as background for you to reference other than he loved purely. He was very much in touch with his feelings and was more than comfortable with that because it meant that he experienced everything with passion. And if not for that, he wouldn't be getting everything out of life that he could." That is such a beautiful statement about a beautiful man. Those are words for us to live by. Many of you may know, some of you may not, my father is also a law professor. And he is in the winter season of his life. He spends a lot of time going to funerals and memorial services. And they're always hard. But he always says that they're not just for they're not just for those who have gone before us. They're also for the living. They are for us. Today is poignant and hard, but it is a day of remembrance and of communing with others. We are bound together by the common bond of knowing and loving Charles. It's an opportunity for us, his friends and family, to reforge and renew those bonds of friendship and family and to carry them forward. And I think that is exactly how Charles would have wanted it. He would want us to do this. It would make him happy. It is the highest tribute we can pay to him. And it just goes to show his impact and his legacy, this tent full of people who cared so deeply about him. We, all of us here, his family, son, friends, we are Charles Pinkerton's legacy. Let's carry his memory forward with joy. I think if Charles were here, he would tell us to do just that. Thank you.
Tim, you want to lead us off and then Greg, Ben, Sean, Gordon, and Randy will just follow each other up here and say a few words.
In times of great tragedy, there are never the right words to say, because words, no matter how kind, will never fill the void in your heart. Over the last several days, I've really struggled to find some sort of vocabulary to describe who Charles is and what he means to me. His energy and his excitement, his philosophical quotes, his caring. His friendship was so much more than that. He was my brother. He was the one I would call when I reached a new milestone in racing, or if I had a horrible, aggravating day and I needed to just vent. He was selfless. And he was so selfless that there were times I'd call to congratulate him on things in his life, like passing the bar, and sometimes we ended up talking about me. That was Charles. This got me thinking about the events that happened over the last week leading up to us being here today. A group of friends living in different places, from different backgrounds, some that I've never met before, spent countless hours over the last week doing everything we could to make sure that Charles was honored in the best way possible today. For friends to love and care about someone that much says a lot about that person. Charles spent so much of his life caring for others. He would share the same kindness to a complete stranger as he would to someone he had known for 20 years. These traits rubbed off on everyone he came in touch with. Last week at Cooper's Rock, I was greeting everyone, and I walked up to Barbara and Kanan. I gave Barbara a hug, and I turned to Kanan. He stepped forward, and he smiled. He put his arm around me, and he said, "How are you holding up, Tim?" It's the exact thing his father would have done. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. As time progresses, the pain won't go away, but the wound will begin to scar. While working through this healing process, remember the happiness and joy he brought in your life. Occasionally, in between tears, just look up and smile, because you were one of the few that were lucky enough to have Charles in your life.
First, I would like to thank everyone for coming today to honor Charles and celebrate his life. When I was asked to speak today, I felt overwhelmed with emotion and knew it was going to be hard to for me to put into words just how much Charles meant to me. In the summer of 1997, when I first met Charles, we were at a friendly get-together when he came up to me and introduced himself with a bright smile. "Hey, I'm Charles. How's it going?" We talked throughout the night, and from this point on, we became friends. I had no idea how special he was sorry. Or how much he would mean to me until years later. As our friendship grew, I could see Charles' characteristics blossom, and I quickly realized that he truly was someone who cared for others. Every time we would talk, he would always ask me how I was doing or what was going on in my life. Anytime I needed to talk to someone or a shoulder to cry on, Charles would be there with open arms. We would talk for hours, and he was so genuine with his words, thoughts, and feelings. Charles could make your day so grand, no matter how bad of a day you were having. If he was having a bad day, you would never know it unless he spoke up, because he always carried himself with joy and happiness. As the years went by, we shared numerous memories, all of which were very special and dear to my heart. We lived together from time to time and became so close that I considered him a brother as well as a friend. I can remember Charles going through some hard times in his life, and when we would talk about them, he was always upbeat and looking towards the positivity of any situation. Then, out of the blue, he would be more concerned about what was going on with me or someone else in his life that he had touched unbeknownst to him. The man was extremely unique, loving, caring, genuine, proud, and always looking towards the good in any situation. Very few people in this world could say that they have met, let alone been able to spend time with someone as great as Charles Pinkerton. I can remember after graduating college, I moved to Columbus, Ohio to start my career job, and I was nervous to venture out into the real world with the fear of failing. Charles sat down with me to talk about my new adventure I was facing. He knew I was nervous, and he knew exactly what to say to build my confidence and ease my mind. He told me that I could accomplish anything as long as I stayed focused and driven. Don't settle for something if you know you can go an extra mile to achieve greatness with anything you do in life. This is just one memory of so many that puts a smile on my face. When I received the news of Charles's passing, it took a few hours to sink in because I didn't want to believe that someone so great, so special, and so loving to me and others had been taken from us. In the hours and days that followed, I was numb and heartbroken at the fact that I didn't get to say goodbye, tell him I loved him, or hug my friend just one more time. I miss seeing his smile, hearing his voice, but most of all, I miss his presence. Every time we would talk, we would say to each other, "I love you, man." Charles always expressed how he felt towards his loved ones. When it came down to it, though, Charles Pinkerton to me was simply the best. So pure, so loving, so driven. He was an amazing father, son, brother, uncle, companion, and friend. He was proud as ever to have his name on that building representing his law practice. It breaks my heart that Charles worked so hard to get the taste of success, and in the blink of an eye it was taken from him. There is no such thing as perfect in this world, but to me, Charles Robert Pinkerton was as close to perfect as anyone could get. I'm so happy and grateful to have you in my life, Charles. I know that you are looking down on everyone here, and we feel your presence always. Having you as a guardian angel is the best gift I could ever imagine. I love and miss you so much. Until we meet again, my brother, fly high, and God bless.
Charles was an intellect. It's clear from listening to Dean Bowman describe his academic and his degrees. He was a doctor of law, master of business. He also had a master's of education. or he was very close to getting one. His intellect was clear to a lot of us from a young age. I didn't meet Charles till the 7th grade, but my friends from elementary school that went with him tell me that Charles would be the kid reading a book at recess. I imagine it was Tolkien or something like that. He always had a wanderlust. The breadth of his interests were just so broad. We would stay up all night talking about whatever. I know lots of you have that experience with him. Charles was an athlete. Specifically, he was a football star. He was the guy on our team that we would rally behind. He was the heart, he was the soul. For those of you that were there, you know what I'm talking about. He ran so hard. It looked like he was running downhill. Some backs are finesse, right? Some running backs are moves. They're not Charles. Charles, he gained yards with just sheer will and self-deprivation. He never left the game without blood on his shins, and I don't even think he left the practice without it. He just so hard. Charles was a ladies' man, and don't worry, Christina knows. Charles joined the choir in high school because there were girls in the choir. I don't even think they let him sing. I think he sang for Charles was a friend. And this is how I know him the best, but it's the hardest thing to put into words. Selfless. I've heard that described over the last couple of weeks. It's good. It doesn't quite get there, but it's good. He would drop things on a dime for all of us to be there. And there are many examples of that, the selflessness that you all have stories. Like a small one that came to mind for me was we were at my grandmother's house. We were painting the gable at the top part of the house, and the ladder was fully extended. And I moved the ladder while it was fully extended. And the catch came loose, and it came crashing down toward my fingers. And Charles, without thinking, he throws his arm into the ladder, bounces off his arm, and it would have broken my fingers. It could have broken his arm. But that how deep that was, that gut, just deep within him, that selflessness, like he just reacts, right? That's how he lived his life. Like it didn't matter if he had a test the next day or a job or whatever. He was just there for us when he needed him. He was just there. Charles is our friend. He's our brother. He's our family. His spirit lifts us up, and his will helps us forward. Charles is the glue that binds, the thread that connects us all together. And now there's a hole in our fabric. You can all feel it. It's deep, and it's wide, and it can't be filled in or covered up. All we can do is strengthen the edges. We can repair the tattered fringes, and in time maybe bridge out across it. We do that by doing what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. We rekindle old friendships. We make new ones. We strengthen the bonds of even the closest friends. Because that was Charles's true gift to all of us, was the deepness of the love that he felt for us, and the strength of it, the honesty behind it. Charles will be with us always. For each of us, it'll be different. For me, it'll be when I'm driving in my car. I'll see him pass me in the blue probe at 19. When I'm sharing a drink or a meal with friends, I'll see him smiling at me across the table. When I'm throwing a football with my sons, I'll see us picking each other up in football practice. Like he has always been, he'll be there for us when we need him, even now. Charles is our friend, and he will be with us always.
Hi, guys. I'm Sean Pinkerton, Charles' brother. When I was asked to speak here today, I had no idea what I was going to say. I called Charles for that normally, you know. But I'm not going to take up much of your time here. I just want to thank everyone for being here and showing the love for him that you have. He would have been proud. Thank you guys. Charles will block this out.
So, like almost everybody here, I was Charles' best friend, and he was definitely mine. Over the years talking to him, I got to know a lot about him by learning a lot about you guys and what he valued. He valued your tenacity, your sharpness in conversation, your loyalty, and he appreciated every bit of it. And that was his guiding principle, was a gratitude towards life, and he attacked it ferociously. He attacked struggles he had about decisions ferociously, his friendships ferociously, his love of his family and friends ferociously. Now it's our obligation to cultivate that which Charles loved in us, and also to see others the way Charles saw others. And some of the last times I talked to Charles, he was busy transitioning his firm to a new area. But even though he was busy, there was a calmness in a way I hadn't seen. And he found the woman he wanted to marry, spend the rest of his life with. A son he was so proud of. Professionally, at practice, it was hanging on the side of a wall. And I think that a lot of what he'd looked for in his life, he found. And while to varying degrees, it sucks to be robbed, and watching a lot of that unfold with him, there's a comfort in that. And it's been a sobering reminder that it doesn't matter if we had 5 more minutes or 100 more years with all of our loved ones. We'll never have as much time as we want. But we'll have the rest of our lives to find and appreciate and love people the way we should. And I know I'm not alone in saying that it's been one of the great privileges and honors in my life to know such a great man. Thank you.
I guess since nobody's using mic, I might as well. Unfortunately, like Charles, I think I have ADHD. So, why not? first and foremost, I'd like to say boogity boogity because he would just be so excited that you guys are here today. And I honestly want to show my deepest appreciation for everybody that was able to make it out today. Just as many of them said, whether it was 2 minutes at a gas station or 24 years. You kind of gravitate towards the guy, you can't help it. I'm going to talk about Charles, but also I want to reflect on things through his eyes as well, and what he would be seeing. I don't know anybody that wasn't happy to see Charles when he walked into the room. He always had a way of just coming in full of energy, and as he greeted you, he always had a nickname for you, whether it was your last name or some nickname. It was always like, "Timothy, good to see you, brother," and come up and give you the biggest hug in the world. You can't help but forget a guy like that does something like that. I lost my place, not that I have one. So I loved how he always gave you the biggest bear hugs. Luckily enough, I know a lot of people was unable to get to say goodbye to him, but every time I saw him, for no reason at all, I would hug him 5 or 6 times and just tell him how much I love him. And he loved me so much. Like they said, Charles was nothing but love. He was selfless, and he was the most genuine person you had ever met. Some of the people I talked to, some of the girls from back in the day, they said that they figured their dad would come up to him and be like, "What's the deal with this guy? What angle is he working?" Because he always showed everybody so much respect. It was always like Mr. and Mrs. Saucerman or Mr. and Mrs. Cottle. It was never anything but respect. And, you know, the greatest thing about him was in high school, he never judged anybody. It doesn't care if you're a jock, a nerd, poor, rich. Charles transcended stereotypes. He was never quick to judge, but always quick to help. He never complained, but always complimented. And if you tried to compliment him, he was a mirror and block right back at you. You mentioned that he did football. He's good at stiff arming. Also, many times this week, I'm sure you've read a lot of my posts, Charles was the best friend that any of us could have. He truly was the best. When he asked how things were going with you, he genuinely meant it and was excited for your accomplishments. If you tried to compliment him, like I said, he'd say, "Nah, man, you're the man." You know, he's always very animated with his hands. So humility was another characteristic that stood out in Charles. I don't know if it was his humble upbringing or life experiences, but Charles' charisma would suck you in like a moth to the flame. Anytime Charles would start a sentence, "Hey man, do you care if I'd always interrupt him and say, "Get whatever you want, Charles. You don't have to ask. I've told you time and time again." "Oh, I'm sorry, man. Don't apologize to me, Charles. You don't have to apologize. I love you, brother. Just get whatever you want." And I mean, how many people in here did Charles apologize to on a regular basis? I mean, always. Another thing that Gordon actually said to me, which was very true with Charles, he said, "I don't want to be on your side. I want to be in your corner." And that was so true of him, not because he's just a great fighter, because he is, but and just like Ben said, with the way that he runs downhill, I made the mistake of getting in front of him one time in football practice. I never made that mistake again. So, man, I'm not sure how many of you might know this, but Charles would often go and buy a lottery ticket. And it's not because he thought he was actually going to win. And he just had the hope of what if we won. And it was never like, hey man, I'm going to buy a big house and buy a boat and some jet skis. It was, I want to help my family out, you know. I want to help Donnie and Heaven and Sean and my mom. His selflessness knew no bounds. Charles always talked about hope for a brighter future, and I don't know how many of you had the privilege of being able to stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning with him and philosophize, but if so, you missed out. Let me tell you. He even see Charles, come on, buddy. He fainted. I'm sorry. He loved that joke. Hey, good, buddy. We're going to put you up here in front. Right there.
Right there.
Sorry about that. I know he even told Christina, he asked her if we were able to and they had to pay on Mars, would you go to Mars with me? Instead of saying just yes, Christine was like, well, what are we going to do with the animals? And, knowing full well that Charles would hold her to it. He looked at everything from medical science, of how they're advancing, to how we could take pills and our synapses would fire faster and we could learn new things. Oh man, he looked at everything with such childlike wonder. And I wish that I could see life through the eyes of Charles Pinkerton. His favorite quote on Facebook was, "You are the universe experience in itself," which speaks to the just how truly insightful he really was. He's the only person I know that got a perfect score on the ACT. But I wanted success for Charles more than I wanted it for myself. When I was going through all of our old emails back and forth to each other, I found a lot of emails where we were constantly trying to help each other, whether I was trying to help him get a job or he was trying to help me get contracts. A lot of people don't know this. After he got his master's in business administration, him and I started a company together as well called Core Solutions Group, because me and my other best friend Brandon have our company, and we were trying to get our 8A, and he was all pumped about that, and he's like, oh man, we can work together. And he always wanted me to meet Jared and Gordon, and he gets so excited just talking about it, he gets goosebumps. He just try to rub, oh man, look at this, check it out. Just try to rub him out, he's so excited. But no matter how many times I always tried to help him and he tried to help me, he always called me and asked for a referral. He's like, hey man, do you care if I put you down for a referral? And I said, Charles, you don't even have to ask. So I'm going to give one last referral for Charles. Maybe. I just wanted to say Charles embodied everything that you would want from an employee, employer, son, a brother, a father, and most dearly to me, a friend. However, I never thought of Charles as a friend, but rather as family, and I am proud to call him my brother. Charles was truly a once-in-a-lifetime type of person that no matter how brief or how long you have known him, he made a lasting impression. It probably had a lot to do with that trademark smile that he has here and the energy that he possessed. And to that, he would probably say, Randy, man, I love you. And to that, I would say, I love you too, Charles, always up forever.
Jake, we have a song performance here that I understand Charles wrote.
I was sitting on the couch, I was trying to get high. Always got a moment, let the time fly by. Come on, star, I said, what you gonna do? Waste it off this joint, this natty like that. Ain't heard an inch, sweet little grin. I've been taking what I'm getting, fuck the rules, they don't bend. I just sit back, relax, take a load off my mind, take it all in. Carnal pleasures and time. But I know this girl, and she walks through my thoughts, swimming through that sea. Swear I got caught, weight upon the horse so I can see straight ahead. It's time to get out the water, too late to tread. Ain't heard an inch, sweet little grin. I've been taking what I'm getting, fuck the rules, they don't bend. I just sit back, relax, take a load off my mind, take it all in. Pleasures and time.
I don't think so.
Well, I'm sitting with my back and staring up against the wall, looking off the edge. I don't wanna fall, but I know the consequences of the things I'm gonna do. I just know right from wrong, haven't got a clue. Ain't heard an inch, sweet little grin. I've been taking what I'm getting, fuck the rules, they don't bend. I just sit back, relax, take a load off my mind, trade it all in. Carnal pleasures and time.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We also wanted to read the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. If you would join me in bowing your heads. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than be understood, to love than be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to find eternal life. Amen. Dean Bowman might not be happy with me telling this story, but it was the end of our second year of law school, and I was actually involved in the first legal dispute case of my life, which is to say that I was suing my Morgantown landlord. Unshocking to anyone from Morgantown. And Charles and I were out celebrating, as I recall, I think because it was a Tuesday. And this girl came over to our table to flirt with Charles. And that's how I settled my first legal dispute, because she turned out to be the landlord's daughter. I don't know, maybe Charles should have had a referral fee for that, counsel. These past 2 weeks, a lot of people have reached out to me that I didn't even realize had ever known or met Charles. A friend from Preston County got in touch to say that she was sorry about the news. She'd met Charles. She is a title worker and was down at the courthouse, and said, I didn't know him well, but I met him. He came into the courthouse with his son and said, I want to teach my son my trade. I had sent in to order a couple copies of the Morgantown Post with Charles's obituary. I got a couple papers back, and I got a note from a girl named Brittany that included some extra copies and said that she'd met Charles and she was sorry for the loss too. And these were the people who just met him at the gas station, at the store, neighbors. Unforgettable in the way that he touched everyone's lives. I don't, times like these make us wonder if there's anything left that we do know for sure. But I think there are at least these three. Charles loved each of us. Charles loved his family. Charles loved his son. And Charles loved Christina. And I think that he would want us to celebrate his life more than mourn his loss. That he would want us to love each other. That he would want us to be happy. And that if there's nothing left that we can do or for us to do, it is but to remember Charles by honoring the way he lived. And as many have noted today, I will try to remember that every day as I go forth, to do what Charles would have done, and that is to smile, even if for now I'm just faking it. Thank you all for being here. There are refreshments down at the pavilion. Please come and fellowship with us and tell your stories about Charles. And there's also a video put together in the back on the TV with some of his memories. Thank you all for being here today.
Christina, go ahead and put that back in the car. Is that okay? Is it okay to go ahead and put him back?
Okay.
We're going back up in a few minutes. That's when you came.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's totally kidding. Right. He's like just big that. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, then you breathe and you're like.